Live. Okay, live again. Adventures in technology. You never know if the rain's going to impact the internet. It's a very bizarre thing. I don't know why. Done. I need to blow my nose. Oh, adjust the light. And oh, there we go. River Coello joined. I waved at River. Have you? River? Hey!
Hey,
You have success?
hi. I think so.
I think my headset.
You are breaking up quite a bit.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that any
We're gonna
better?
wait a few minutes anyway,
Yeah.
so still hard to see you.
Well, that might be a light issue that can be adjusted. The I was really enjoying so over here am I breaking up over here?
It's just kind of hard to see you. Um, very pixelated. Are you connected to Wi-Fi or data?
Well, I'm on the Wi-Fi, but the Wi-Fi is upstairs. So if it's being funny because of the rain, we'll change our. Is this less pixely?
Mm-mm.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-mm.
Oh, might have to change my setup completely. How's this? Is this still pixely?
Yep, but we can always just sit down wherever you feel more comfortable and start the conversation. I can hear you very well. Um,
Yeah.
People will join in wherever we can see you best, even if it's a little pixelated. We'll go ahead and do it.
Out of the places that I went, is there a place that's best for this?
Uh-oh. Now you're really breaking up.
Okay, I'm going to move. And we'll reset.
Oh, right there. This is
Right there?
perfect.
Okay, I'm going to do the whole thing
Yep.
standing like this on one foot and my arm in the air. Just a second. It's adventures of stealing internet from people. Okay, and now.
That's great. For those of you watching, thank you for being patient. We're figuring this out. We have a good conversation ahead.
And now, okay, this stool will leave me like this. And there we go.
Perfect.
How's that?
Okay. That's much better.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's wait just a few more minutes, but we can get started. I know time is a little tricky since we have followers kind of everywhere in the world, so some of them might join halfway through.
Mm-hmm.
And if they can't join the live, then we'll archive it and people can see it. Well, welcome everyone to Meet the G Hive. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all Jack Paterson. I have had the incredible privilege of working alongside him in two productions so far, Medusa and Atlantia in Italy,
Uh,
Medusa in Chicago. And it was so fun. I'm just curious um, about your journey and who you are. So I know that people have questions and they want to get to know you too. For those of you who do not know Jack, he's one of the founding members of the Global Hive, which is this incredible collective of theater artists that works all over the world, really. And Jack has had so much incredible international experience, and we'll get into that later. But tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Who is Jack Paterson?
That's a heavy
We love
question.
this
Who are
question,
you?
right?
I don't know. I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't have to make art, right?
Right.
That's the search, the journey, I mean, I'm a Canadian kid born in BC in Vancouver. I grew up in a very multicultural neighborhood. As an artist, I trained in New York in the late '90s. Got my actor training down there. Stuck around for a little bit. Did shows on rooftops and rehearsed in the back of bars and got into mischief. And then moved back to Vancouver. Did about a decade in Vancouver where I ran an organization or a small company that was focused on doing classical material in contemporary form. So we were doing contemporary practices, and we did all the stuff that no one would touch. We were doing Titus Andronicus and Linus and
Mm-hmm.
with.
Riff.
We were the only organization under parity mandate. At the time, looking back on it, it was like, oh, more we could have done. But at the time, we were doing something that others weren't. So then around 2009, I went and did a residency at the Shaw Festival, which is the third largest festival, I think, in North America. And that really sort of informed by like the experiences in New York, like, oh God, New York, that's like wonderful. There's just so much to take in. Just made me go, oh, okay, what else is out here, right? And then the next few years I spent sort of crisscrossing Canada and what's going on in different cities and exchange into the Francophone theater as well, which is very, very different from the Anglophone theater. And then from there, that's 2012. Then 2012, I went to E15 in London. And the choice of that particular program, and that's where I met Denise, who's our sort of co-founder. Like Denise and I mean, she's like the oracle and the power and the drive. But we did start this together, and then she's managed to take it to new heights. Denise. So the reason for going to East 15 was that I was purposely trying to find a training platform. One, because I was a self-taught director and had my own, there's the problem of being self-taught is you don't necessarily fit into all the structures of the institutions, etc. So I wanted to get that little stamp that might open up some jobs, but also that particular program was chosen because of the international diversity within the program. I was trying to find a program where I could meet the most people from the most different places with the most different perspectives possible. And that's where I met Denise. So I did that for 2 years. And even within that, it was, 1 year in London. And then like the next year I was back in Vancouver. Then I was in Russia. Then I was in Indonesia. So it opened up all these other wonderful sort of doorways to other cultures and how do other people do theater and what is theater to them and what does it mean, what's its purpose, what are their stories like, where do they come from, why do they tell them that way. And then from then on, it's been sort of living my entire life fits into a backpack, and it's been predominantly sort of staying on the road. The last year was Indonesia, on a fusion project of sort of Western devising creation practices, traditional Balinese practices. What the gang came up with. Then I did 4 months sort of following around some contemporary German theater, which was super cool because it's the German theater. So you go to a main stage German theater show. Like one of the last ones I saw on the main stage was. So this is the city theater. This is the theater that's funded by the city. This is what you would expect in English language to be it would be the most structured and potentially safe venue, right? And the last show I saw with them, there was like this guy standing there naked, holding a log above his head in a it's a. Sorry, I'm a little nervous. I'm losing my words here, but he had to say a 5-minute monologue and not drop a log on himself. Meanwhile, he's butt naked, surrounded by live pigs, right?
Right, of course.
So, right. So then I found out about this thing called Flausen, and Flausen is what all the independents are doing, and they're like the really risky, dangerous stuff. And I'm kind of like, well, if the naked man with the log above his head surrounded by live pigs isn't the risky, dangerous stuff, what on earth are they doing over there, right?
Right,
so,
yeah. That was the more tame thing.
yeah. I was like, huh? And what was super cool about that, so I spent 4 months following around the rural, and it was mostly rural organizations, which was really neat. So how do you bring rural and the contemporary arts, which tends to be sort of like city-based, like Berlin, London, New York, Toronto, or Montreal, right. And so how are they bringing them together? So I did 4 months of that, and then we were in Italy with the Access Project, which was just fantastic, and then Medusa, and then I was in Ireland when this all hit. Now I'm back in a basement in Vancouver, and I have no idea who I am and what I'm going to be.
Well, I'm glad that I asked then, so I have some time to reflect on it. Well, this is all really great. It's great to hear about your journey, and I think one of the most notable aspects of it, of course, is your international work. And you've started to kind of tell us a little bit about what that's like with, what happened in Germany. But what are the biggest opportunities that you have found in this kind of cross-cultural, international, ever-moving work? And what do you love about it, right? Besides just a general curiosity for how people operate in other settings. I'm curious.
Well, in a way, it comes back to your first question. I mean, who am I? Or who are you? I mean, on a personal level or a philosophical level, there's the element of my interest is in, I want to try new foods. I want to see new cities. I want to understand new architecture. I want to, and theater for me has always been about other people, right? As an actor, like the thing I really dug about acting was like trying to figure out how this other person with this completely different life and completely different set of circumstances and what do we have in common and what is different? And that exploration of what is different from self reveals, right? We try to learn. And by learning about others, we learn about self, right? So there's that personal thing. But then, some things are just so mind-blowing. The Indonesian, the Balinese. So every time I've gone to a conference for producers or in English-speaking Canada, we end up we're talking about parking lots and box offices and you know, how to, it was sort of all this like practical money stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, what are your audience demographics and da-da-da-da-da, and how do we get more bums in seats? And then the conversations don't tend to bleed over into the artistic. And then you go and work in Bali for a bit, and the Balinese have no box office, no set start time. The audience actually isn't important to the performing arts. It's nice. The artists appreciate it. They really would prefer an audience, but the actual purpose is not that. The purpose is it's more spiritual in nature, right? So it's without having gone to, I mean, as much as like I could have, you know, read about it, without having gone and experienced that, and with the wonderful sharing of those artists I was able to work with there, I never would have been able to think of theater in this way. You know, it's that thing, if you have to experience it, you try new food, you have to eat it, you have to try it, you have to taste it. And so that, another great example, I don't know if this is a great example, but it was one that intrigued me, on our project in Italy. So Atlantide, so it was a device creation project. I know you know this, but our one other person might not. I mean, aside from the excitement of being able to, okay, let's take some more steps in the active access. How do we apply access tools as creative tools? There was this. We had the talkback. So we had this talkback, and my little Western English language producer brain's going, "Oh, we need chairs and da da da. Why haven't the chairs been set up?" And I went through this whole panic at the end of the. At the end of the show, going, and I'm like finding chairs and putting them up. Meanwhile, the entire Italian audience has come down onto the stage and is just hanging out with the actors and having conversations.
Right? It was really beautiful to watch. It felt more personal, right?
Well, exactly.
And it allowed for many more conversations to happen, right? So obviously, not everyone got to be a part of every single one, like we would in a traditional setting over here, where we would sit everyone on stage and people from the audience would ask their questions, but so many extremely relevant conversations about that period. And it was really, really beautiful to watch. I mean, I'm a little butterfly, right? So I was having, I guess, conversations with everyone as I could. It was really, really fun. But yeah, let's talk about that project, right? You did access work for that particular project, and the way we're calling it now is really active access design. And that's intentional, right? There is a reason why we're doing that. And so tell us a little bit about why active, what really is accessibility in your eyes? How do you make it part of the creative process? Challenges, opportunities, just tell us everything you could possibly think of right now about that work, especially in the context of that Italian work and ensemble.
Got to figure out what we need to keep secret. So, you know, this is ours. What was really wonderful about that, I mean, so the word active, and we've sort of pulled that from the Russian practice of active analysis, which is a fusion of text and creation work in your rehearsal practices. It's done over a much longer period of time. It's very difficult to do under a Western English language 2-week, 3-week rehearsal. But it is sort of the main sort of structure underpinning, I guess, post-drama, but a lot of contemporary practice, because the Russian practice influenced the East German practice influenced the German practice, and that influenced France, the rest of Europe, etc. And we're only just starting to get into it now in the West, partially because of inflation. So, for example, China has had access to the later Stanislavski writings and the writings of active analysis and Maria Knebel's because of the communist link, whereas I think Maria Knebel's book has
just been translated into English this year. I had to read it in French. But that's where we sort of pulled the word active from, because it's active. It is part of the rehearsal process. You are up on your feet exploring actively. The access element was, and this personally, this has been a really interesting journey. The necessity and the priority of it that I didn't quite recognize as, I mean, like, yeah, it's cool, and yes, we need to have, you know, we need to facilitate as many people as possible. But then it was really the Medusa project that really sort of went to me, okay, hang on, this is vital.
Yeah.
If theater is to reach beyond what it's sort of been structured to do in Western English language theater. And this is not saying that there aren't really exciting things going on, because there are. And the strange sort of separation that's, my feeling is that it's more a result of funding and how funding works. I'm gonna go on a little tangent to touch in on that separation. I recently worked with a really lovely friend of mine called Niall McNeil, who's a Vancouver theater artist, writer, actor, and director. And he has Down syndrome, so he's sort of been categorized in this area of disability arts. But Nye doesn't see himself like that. He's a director, right? He doesn't want to be set here or here. He wants to work with everybody, just like I do.
Right. He wants to create.
Right. Yeah. So that sort of those funding streams tend to sort of create this sort of these separate but equal divides. And then, so for me, that kept running through my head. I mean, because how do we create a space where everybody can come, like, and receive something?
Definitely.
And then watching the journey, because it was a really neat journey through how on the Medusa project in Chicago and in the UK, so there's sort of two different tracks on how to incorporate narrative and audio description so that it was essential to the piece. And Denise took it one way, right? And then Katie in London had another approach on it.
Yeah.
And then within that, there was some playing with how do we play with the captioning.
Yeah.
And then
you took it another way too in Italy, right?
Well, yeah, and part of it was about how do we make it part, like, essential on the inside, so that it's fully part of the creation. And then part of it was going, how do we address things like, if something is abstract, yet you've got an audio description which is explaining it, that sort of defeats that purpose. So if you're trying to reach people in an abstract manner, how do you do that with the accessibility tools? And then how do you use them as creative inspirations or obstacles? So how do you apply these tools so that an audience receives a full journey? They may not all receive the same journey. And that's the other little part of the approach is do we go on Italy? It was about, well, I think on Medusa, it felt like it was here we're trying to give everybody the same experience. Where on Italy, it was about how do we each every single individual audience member their own unique experience.
Yeah.
And that it was such an interesting thing. So then a scene, they'd go off and do the writing exercises with you, and then there would be the development of a sequence from that, or a scene developed out of an idea. Then to go, okay, so now how do we just tell this story?
Different elements, yeah.
Great. Now how do we, and not necessarily how do we tell the story A, B, C, D, E, but how do we tell the feeling of the story,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to the plot points. And then to go back again and then go, okay, so that's just impacted everything visually. How do we ensure that it's told visually? And then, okay, there's that. Now, how do we make sure the two have come together so that there's the audio journey, the visual journey, the complete journey, or not complete, but another journey that has the two sort of all linked together. And then, I mean, there was one of my favorite little moments on that was the drowning sequence. And so at the end of Atlantis, it's the story of Atlantis. Everybody dies. They drowned.
Yeah.
And there was this beautiful physical journey that was created. There was this sort of beautiful audio, like you got the audio from the gasping of people drowning. You're like, that sounds like people are drowning. I think we'll get that.
Yeah.
But then just a touch of, okay, we need some more clarity here. And we threw in some verbatim text on what drowning does to a person. So it's so we're providing the audio description, but in an artistic fashion as opposed to a.
It almost read like poetry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It was a poetic moment, really, when the daughter, right, from heaven, maybe, if that's what you believe, right, was kind of telling what happens when someone drowns. And it was heartbreaking, right? It's like not a pleasant experience. And as you hear the gasps and the music and you see them drowning, I mean, it was really a full picture. And I think that happened with every single one of our scenes. I was so impressed with how quickly we were able to put it all together, right? But it was like very much layered. We weren't just interested in what to tell, but how to tell it. And that was really, really, really powerful. Wow. What are you most excited about this next chapter of Global Hive Labs?
The next chapter, next chapter of life, or this next chapter of Global Hive Labs? What's awesome, I mean, like all of us in the arts, I've been impacted by COVID-19. I'm a guy who makes his living on the road.
Yeah.
And that road has been taken away. So that's all a little frightening and terrifying. The flip, or the positive that I'm finding out of this, because with Global Hive, I mean, it's this thing. I've been like writing grants to Canada Council for years going, and they kept getting little hiccups around this remote stuff that we're doing. And what is that? There was a grant I had rejected in January that said, imagine a dancer in one room, a musician in another room, or imagine a dancer in one location, and a musician in another location, and an actor in another. And it was rejected in January. I'm like, oh, it would have been really good to have that money right now.
Right.
But the flip, the positive is that although right now we're facing hard borders, which is going to impact how we reach out to each other, how we learn from each other, how we experience the world through others' eyes, or at least touch in on that experience. On the flip, everybody's on Zoom right now, so getting people to be open to the idea that you don't have to be. I've been arguing with people for ages because I'm on the road going like, I can run this stage reading from wherever I am. I directed a show in London last year from a small town in Nova Scotia.
It is possible.
It's totally possible. It was, we were doing, there was no money. I did it on Facebook, right? But it's totally possible. But now people are more open to that idea. And with Global Hive, things like the Global Connector project, that's something we've been thinking about for ages.
Right.
And it was sort of planned, or you had a feeling that this might be something that might be coming to fruition in the near future. And then COVID hit, and it wasn't us going, oh, let's make something for COVID. It was us going,
okay, we're just bumping up the schedule on that. Even it wasn't an official, like on a spreadsheet schedule, but it was sort of, you could feel it in the Hive consciousness.
Yeah.
So that.
And you've been leading the work from, I guess, the Vancouver Hive. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what that process has felt like for you? You know, seeing the submissions come in.
It's
Yeah,
been
what's it been
really
like?
wonderful. I wish I had more time to just really push it forward more. But
Yeah.
the when COVID-19 really caught up with me, so like you, I'd been in Italy, then I went to Germany, then I was in London, and then I had some meetings in Ireland. And it was quite literally like being chased by the demon of COVID, right? Because everything just kept shutting down. I would go somewhere and then I would
Yeah.
leave, and a week and a half later it would be closed. Or the flip was Boris Johnson saying things. It was like, okay, I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yeah.
But
I remember that too. I was in
yeah,
Italy and then I went to Hungary and then I ended up in Germany. And literally as soon as I landed in the US, the
yeah,
travel ban
yeah,
started. It was wild. I was so glad that I got home when I did, for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. It yeah, just sort of, just like gates closing on the way.
Hmm.
I was terrified. I was like passing it on. Turns out,
Yeah.
I got myself checked, but it was like, no, okay, I wasn't. Oh, is this
Yeah.
my fault? Everywhere I go, this happens.
You're
I
patient
was
zero.
in Italy.
Yeah.
Uh, but so I just wrapped up some meetings in Ireland, and then St. Paddy's Day hit, Dublin shut down. Wasn't quite sure what to do with myself. And I'd already planned to head over to Galway and just, maybe write a grant and go do some backpacking, right? And the
Hmm.
and then that's when things down. Minister Trudeau got on the airwaves, uh, very fatherly, telling us all to come home. Um, and yeah, and in I'd sort of seen all the theaters close in Europe, and you're sort of going like, oh my God, this is, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
So I reached out to Nye, um, and I just asked him like, hey man, can you write me a poem, something about hope?
Hmm.
Let's get something positive, something to help us look forward, right?
Hmm.
And so he wrote this poem. And then the idea was just, okay, we'll just share it. We'll just get the poem out to
Hmm.
people.
Yeah.
People respond. We ask for a response. It was sort of inspired. Carolina and I were talking. Carolina runs Chez Artistes, or Chez Acto,
Hmm.
in Piacenza. And
Hmm.
we were talking, and she was telling about how the
She's an
isolation was
incredible
happening there.
person.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's amazing. She's amazing.
Yeah. Hmm.
And she had talked about, what the Italians were singing at the windows, and my brain sort of put
Hmm.
Nye's poem and that together.
Hmm.
And so I just sort of put the poem out there, and people have been responding, and people have not been responding as well. There's this
Hmm.
wonderful, it's like some responses going for something to do.
Hmm.
More messages going, thank you for giving this to me. I don't quite feel comfortable putting this up into the world yet because I'm still trying to figure out the technology, and this is a completely new thing for me. But I was like, well, that's totally cool. It's absolutely cool. The point is that you had this connection with the
Hmm.
poem, and it's about process. It's not about final product. Uh,
Definitely.
and then we've got this like absolutely Asha Cecil, who's a remarkable deviser and creator in London. She put together she created three sort of dances. She created an audio response, and then she created three dances which she layered together in video. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
There's one where Haley I can't remember Haley's last name off the top of my head, but Haley's a local emerging dancer in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And she took the Nye reading the poem audibly, and
Mm-hmm.
she just played it. And she added in a touch of piano, and on her patio, responded physically. It was just beautiful. And it's this opportunity to engage not just in response, but in conversation with Nye's
Definitely.
perspective, with
Mm-hmm.
his message of hope,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all in this together. Um,
Mm-hmm.
uh, I just lost my thought there. There was actually something that was even more important, but I can't remember what it is right now. But it's the chance to engage, to get a bit of perspective on Nye's worldview, to engage with that, to be in conversation with that, and to
Definitely,
have a
especially during
response.
this weird time, right? Like, something that I've noticed about my own practice is that I am gravitating towards any source of hope and light and positivity, but also
Yeah.
creativity, right? Like, I feel my most centered when I find even just, I don't know, I was at a coffee shop the other day and there was like this
Oh,
like
oh
little
my
game
gosh.
that is like,
Yeah.
I know, right? Um, I know, I miss them. Um, and there was this little game that was like, ideas to like spark curiosity or magic or whatever. And I just remember being really drawn to that because I was like, this right now is the perfect time to create something that feels connective. And I loved this poem that kind of launched the whole ICP in Vancouver. It was really
Yeah.
beautiful. I had the opportunity to translate it too, and it was like conversing with it, right? Like kind of asking the point, what does it want to be? Um, and what can it be in Spanish? It was really beautiful and really fun to engage in that. And so I feel like I know what other artists are kind of experiencing when they confront that for themselves, right? Especially wherever they are in the world. Um, Things are different, right? It all feels different. Um,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah. Well, and we're all having to work from. I mean, we're all having to work from all these isolations, and
mm-hmm,
it it, to me. I mean, my perspective, and it's this lack of. I know it's a climate issue, but this lack of airplanes is very troublesome for me. This not being able
right.
to go
Mm-hmm.
exploring. That's what I do. For the last 10 years of my life, I've spent 1 year in one place, and that was because of school. Pretty much it's like
Yes.
3 months
Yeah.
somewhere, right? And
Wow.
then off to the next. The, the, maybe trains. If there were more trains, everything would be okay. The,
Very
the,
true.
but we're not in any of this alone. The, the pleasure that I derive from my role as the artist in that particular project, the Innocence of Hope project,
hmm
is that I'm connecting people across the world. That poem's in Spanish, Portuguese, uh, Mandarin from Taiwan. We've got Italian coming, and we've got German
hmm
coming. The the
hmm
artists that have responded are in Vancouver, are in Montreal, are in
hmm
the the conversations that we had, the connector group. We had there was it's a group of artists from Sabine in Switzerland, Switzerland, Vancouver, and Chicago. The
hmm
Just recently, one of my side projects, through facilitating translation, I've been working with um, some folks in Brazil who are only just going into lockdown, like last week.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so all those conversations that have happened, whether it's I ran a workshop with British Equity. It meant I was up at 6 in the morning, but we were doing this workshop with someone in Montreal, someone in Toronto, me
Yeah.
here, someone else here.
bunch of folks in London, but they're actually spread out around England. And then there was an artist in Salzburg.
Mm-hmm.
That those conversations, how's everybody doing? How are you getting by?
Yeah.
What's it like where you are? Oh, and what's being done? Okay. Oh, you're just going into lockdown? Well, if you need, when you hit week 2, call me.
Right.
Call me, right?
Exactly.
Those conversations to me are what's important in the art right now. And that's to me that's what theater is. Theater is people of diverse perspectives on the world, diverse experiences, different viewpoints of it,
Mm-hmm.
informed by their experiences, whatever those may be, coming together and finding both the common and the different. The different is just as important.
Definitely. It's all part of processing and hopefully healing, right? Because that really is what we're doing. And I think we are healing from not just the pandemic, right? We're seeing
Cool.
right now, we're healing, we're in a period of unrest because we're trying to heal from older pandemics, some of them social, right? What we see violence against Black lives, Black trans lives. I mean, it's been there with us forever, right? And we are trying to literally break away from that. And that's, I think, one of the more beautiful, if not painful, right, consequences of having the time to confront what hurts. Um, on this note of prompts and conversations, I have a game that I like to bring to this conversation. That's called We're Not Really Strangers. For those at home that are watching this or will watch it, We're Not Really Strangers. You can find it on Instagram. But it's a conversation game, really, and it has 3 different levels. You start with perception and kind of go into connection, and the last one is even deeper. I can't remember the names right now, but um, I'm just gonna pull a question from that, and I'm gonna ask it to you and see what you come up with. This is a surprise question. I haven't seen it either. But what is one thing about yourself that you would not change?
Oh,
They get deep.
uh, I would not. One thing about my the wanderlust, I would not change that for the world. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's a beautiful quality. I think it's allowed you to live such a rich life up until now, and there's no reason why, provided the pandemic ends, right? You can do it more
Well, and
and differently, maybe, right?
sometimes sometimes the wanderlust is just crossing the street, and
True.
who are you, right? Let's make
Definitely.
something. It'll change the world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much, Jen Jack. I think that concludes our conversation today. I had a lot of fun getting to know you a little better, and just hearing about your experiences all over the world, really, and some of those lessons and just hopes for the future. No, I think that that's really where I try to ground my work, and I see that same kind of like passionate energy for a better world in you and in everyone else that's part of Global Hive. So I don't know, this just left me feeling really replenished and hopeful again. So thank you for that.
Cool. Yeah. Well, what do we do with all this? Do we return it to before, or do we make the world better?
Exactly. I
I think
hope that more people are asking themselves that
that's a
question.
really yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, here's to making it better than we found it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, and Jack.
It's lovely to
I'm
see
gonna
you.
head out now. Good seeing you
Okay.
too. Bye.
And how do I turn this off?